Hi, this is a video in response to Blue Table Painting talking about the different games. I just got all nerdy and wanted to do my own. I don't know too much about Malifaux and Infinity, but I do know about quite a bit about War Machine, 40K, Fantasy, and Flames of War, which was not mentioned in the video. And I did a analysis on them and just wanted to share my thoughts and see what you guys think. Let me start off with War Machine Hordes. This is a great game for someone who does not want to paint a lot of models or buy a lot of models, or you want to buy many different armies and paint them and play them yourself. Maybe your friends do not like to collect and you have to really collect for them. Also, what I like a lot about these, it's a positive and negative, that you have these cards that have all the information about the unit that you are using, and it has all the stats, and it even has a counter here that you can mark off damage, which is really great. You can see the battle damage happening instead of all of a sudden, boom, your thing blows up. You can see your unit start to get worn down until it's destroyed or disabled, or there's a weapon that no longer works or anything like that. The disadvantage of that is that you really can't customize, because the card is already printed. So you can customize your army by getting different units, and there's different types of the same unit, so you have different versions of these cards. So that sort of gets into the customization, but there's no real, I'm going to take off this cannon and put on a fist or something like that. You can only customize as far as they have it. The rules are nice and clean. It's a very well balanced game, in my opinion. I don't see one faction really having a major advantage over another. And they're fun to paint. I consider a low model count a big plus, because you don't want to spend that much time and money on a particular game. So you want to try to keep that model count down. This game does that for you. The next game is Warhammer 40K. Obviously, the positives about it is that it is very popular. It is the most popular game by far. It's not even close. And that may be the most important thing in my opinion, because if you don't have anybody to play, then it kind of the game loses its luster. It just sits around. All you're doing is just painting and looking at your models, and you don't really get to do anything. It is a great tournament game. People just show up, play in a tournament, and that's really what this game is for, having really good tournaments. I don't see it doing that well in campaigns because of the lack of character customization. There's not much you can do with that unless you're creative, but I don't see very much support in that area. The rules are, in my opinion, very easy to learn. You have very simple rules. The rules make sense. They're easy to master. So as far as the rules are concerned in that respect, great for young people. People that are not really into these types of games can pick up on the rules fairly quickly and get into the game as quick as they can. A couple of downsides is that it really is not a very balanced game. The new codexes that come out, the big one right now is Grey Knights, tend to dominate the older codexes. The longer the codex is out of print, the worse the army tends to be. Sisters of Battle comes to mind, Tau. So it is not, that's where I disagree with Shawn. I don't consider it very balanced. It is painting intensive. I made a critical error here with my two tanks here. I primed them in black and then used up just a ton of blood red pots, and it costs a lot of money just to get the paint down just for the base color, so that, it's taken me forever on that. You also have to spend a lot of money. With War Machines, you're not going to have to spend, even though per model it's more expensive, but you're not going to need as many as you need for, look at, I got all these models here. I'm barely pushing 1,100 points. So it is money intensive, painting intensive. Okay. You have a lot of freedom in the way that you can make up your own chapter. Space Marines comes to mind. Paint things the way that you want. A lot of freedom in that respect. The models are really nice too, especially like Dark Eldar and so forth. So, with fantasy, it is the most model intensive, which that's a negative for me. It is great for campaigns. You can customize your units very well, but the reason why it's great for campaigns is that you can customize. Somebody does an F&G campaign in Blacksburg that I think is just the greatest campaign setup I've ever seen, where you have a stable of heroes and they get experience and build up over time, and yeah, it's really good. It is. They have, I think, the nicest models. They're the most fun for me to paint. But on the flip side of that, it's so model intensive, and the models are so good to paint that it takes a really long time. You really put a lot of effort into fantasy. I like the backstories. I think they're really cool. I enjoy reading about them. Um, the rules are kind of difficult. I think that turned a lot of people off. The rules have uh, they they seem a bit wonky. Once you understand them, though, they make sense. But it's tough to get into it unless you are taught by somebody who is very well experienced. Um, there are some units that are completely useless, in my opinion. Silver Helms comes to mind for the High Elves. Why get those when I could get Dragon Princes? The point cost to the unit, just it doesn't make sense to put them on the board. So there are some units there that if you happen to have them, it's too bad because they're not very useful. And then just a little disclaimer: I'm biased towards Flames of War because I have so much stuff. Um, but I really enjoy Flames of War. It's a World War II game. It's a different scale, which I think is it's a plus in one sense that you get to put more units on the board, and it feels more like a big battle, kind of like fantasy. Fantasy feels like a big battle, and you probably should play it on an 8-foot wide board. I agree with Shawn on that. If you have a wider board, it makes more sense for fantasy. Um, the Flames of War feels more like a battle because you have so many units. Each, instead of having one infantry guy, you have a stand with 4 or 5 infantry guys on there. They just came out with 3rd edition rules, and that's a disclaimer that the 40K is coming out with new rules, so they probably have some improvements. But I think that the guys over at Flames of War have done a great job. There's not quite as much customization as you would have on, let's say, 40K, but there's so many different unit styles that you can have, and each model can cross over to another type of unit. For instance, if I have High Elves and I want to play Ogres, well then all those High Elves are now useless. If I play, 12th SS Panzer Division, I use those Panthers. I can just, so let's say I want to play 21st Panzer, or not, I don't know if they have Panthers, but another regular Panzer Division that has Panthers in them. I can just cross over those Panthers from mid-war to late war, and from one division to the next, which they have different ratings, different abilities. So your model count, even though it's high initially, they're very much useful from book to book to book as they upgrade it. It's a great tourney game, and it's a great campaign game. Not quite as good tournament game as 40K, and not quite as good a campaign game as Fantasy, but it's catching up with the new with infantry aces and tank aces, the axis of attack that they use. You can make a map board. They're giving you more and more support and relying less so on fan support. The reason why I think that this is the most balanced game that you can get is not because they're geniuses and they know how to balance the game better than anybody else, but what ends up happening with the other games is that you get a codex book. Blood Angels comes out, tends to be the best one. It's most updated, most in tune with the rules. Warhammer does the same thing. They're trying to do all the new books that to make them align with the new rules and make them more balanced. But what happens with Flames of War is that you don't have a codex. You have, let's say, a battle book, which has several armies in there. Usually there's a German army in there. But what ends up happening is that this particular one has British, Italians, and Germans in it. And every time a new book comes out, all those armies get updated. So if there's, and usually they don't change the points or the abilities very much, and they're not above doing erratas where they change, for instance, this book, the British armored was way undercosted. So they sent out stickers to everybody to put over the old point costs, and they're actually, they did a really good job. If I can find it real quick here for you. It's Italians. Okay. Okay, so here we have all the things. There are stickers on here, and you can't even tell because they did such a great job. That's a sticker. These are all stickers, and you can't tell, what's a sticker and what isn't. That's not a sticker. So they did a really good job in updating their books, even recognizing that they made a mistake and trying to balance it so that everybody has fun. And if a new book comes out, let's say North Africa came out, you have British, Germans, Americans, and so forth, Italians in there. All those lists will be in line with the new rules. All those lists will be balanced together, so you can theme them together, and you can always have a balanced game, or at least as close to a balanced game as the guys can figure it out. They do a really good job in that. A big con, I guess, is that if you play the other games, they're all 28 millimeters or close to that. So you have different terrain, different styles. This one's 15 millimeters, so the buildings for this one are not going to work for this. You can, anything that's nature can work, but yeah, if you have buildings for Flames of War, it's going to look kind of funny in fantasy world. So that's a disadvantage, that it's really not compatible size-wise, but it has its own flavor, and really just the buildings are the problem. One other thing I wanted to mention is to make things easier, to make a quick reference, there's a program called Army Builder online that you can get that will allow you to build armies for fantasy 40K. It's basically the same format so that you can have all your armies, your stats, and your abilities on a couple pieces of paper. Flames of War also has that with an easyarmy.com. They both do a great job of getting all what you have on your list and then the stats that you can quick reference. Instead of going through all the books and trying to look up every single rule, they have these things. The reason why I don't see too much support for war machines or hordes is because of these cards. I mean, you're going to have them right there, right in front of you, and that makes these lists not as useful. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed what this was. This response to Shawn and his analysis of the games. Go ahead and leave a message. Please try to be nice. I did the best that I can. I am not the expert, but I do like these games. You can't lose. If you go into any of these games, you cannot lose. If they're all terrific games, they're fun to play, and I wish more people would get into them, and I wish more people would give the other games a chance because they really are awesome games. Thanks.